Hello, it's time to reveal what whiskies have made it to my winter whisky collection. As a food writer, I'm really passionate about cooking with seasonal ingredients. And so at this time of year, in January and February, my cooking is all about beef and pork and root vegetables. Parsnips are absolutely glorious right now. And then things like Jerusalem artichokes as well. And I'm sure you all know what sort of effect they can have on you. Citrus fruit is great, and my seasonings for January and February, my herb of the month is bay, which is wonderfully aromatic, and most people have no idea just how brilliant that is. It's wonderful in cooking at this time. I even put it in my marmalade. And then nutmeg is my spice of the month. So that's very warming. We're cinnamoned off after Christmas, and those two flavourings go together really, really well in my cooking. But what about the whiskies to go with it? So I've tried to be a little bit different, but you might think I was really easily led by my first choice, which is from Dalwhinnie, the highest distillery in Scotland, and it is their new Winter's Gold. Now, this is produced just with spirit made in the coldest months. And the worm tubs at this distillery are outside. You can see them quite clearly when you drive past on the A9. And because of the real coldness of the temperature outside, they feel it affects the flavour of the whisky. I'll talk about that in more detail when we look at this whisky on its own. But I just want to tell you that this is perhaps controversial and very different because Dalwhinnie say they have made it to be served from the freezer. It won't freeze completely because, of course, of the alcohol, but it takes on a thickness, a different viscosity. And also the flavours are slightly knocked back. It's absolutely fascinating, and you also get an oiliness in the mouth which makes it great with food. So that's Dalwhinnie's Winter's Gold, following on a tradition from many distilleries in very cold places, like some of the Swedish distilleries do produce a winter whisky. So that is the first in my collection, closely followed. A bit of a cheeky one, this. This is from A.D. Rattrays, whose shop is called a Whisky Experience because they're really keen to get their customers to taste. And they are on the west coast of Scotland in Ayrshire, very close to Troon. And we discovered this last year on our holiday, recommended by good old Kevin Abrook from Girvan Grain. And we just loved this house malt. It is actually a Speyside malt, so this is where I'm being a little bit cheeky because I wanted to include it because it's fantastically good value, but also because the Ayrshire coast, of course, is the birthplace of Robbie Burns, Scotland's national poet, and we celebrate the anniversary of his birth in January on the 25th of the month. So that's Rattrays House single malt whisky. And if you think, well, what's the good of putting that into the collection? They will post it to you. My third whisky is a great favourite. Again, this comes from Speyside. It's from Glenfarquhar, one of the Valley's oldest distilleries. And at 15-year-old, this is where their whiskies really start to deliver, if you like, the house style. They're all sherry cask matured. So in here you get traces of orange, perhaps marmalade starts to come through. And if you're a cook, you know January is when you're going to be making Seville orange marmalade. But lots of dried fruits as well, things like raisins, which you'll be putting in your winter salads. And also it matches very well indeed with things like winter fruit salads, where you're using citrus and things like yummy things like dried apricots and even prunes. So this is from Glenfarquhar. They're 15-year-old, very different from A.D. Rattrays' house malt. but showing two sides of Speyside. I've included 2 blended whiskies in my winter whisky collection, and of course I'm a cook, so blending different ingredients and flavours really interests me. And this is from Weems Malts. It's called Spice King, and it's so fruity. What I get from this more than anything else is plums, but also a really complex but accessible malt whisky with just a hint of smoke in the background, but full-on spicy flavours. And it's a delicious whisky for winter. It was also a great success when I took it into Woman's Hour at BBC Radio 4 and did a tasting with Jenny Murray last year. I think it's so unpredictable though. I don't think it's a terribly masculine whisky. So I'll just float the idea to you, should it really be called Spice King or possibly Spice Queen? Controversial, let me know what you think. And my final whisky in my winter whisky collection, just move my bay out of the way, is from Compass Box. So this is part of their great King Street range, which is like me as a cookery writer trying to take a traditional recipe and put a modern twist on it. What they do with the great King Street range is they're taking traditional styles of whisky making and bringing a modern twist to them. So this is their Glasgow blend, and it was well known that Glaswegians preferred a much greater depth of flavour in their whisky than the people of Edinburgh. So this is a very full-bodied whisky. It's spicy, it's warming, it personifies the character of Glasgow for me. It's elegant, it's cultured, but there is a great depth to it and also smokiness, which there's no getting away from the fact that Glasgow can be quite grey. And somehow even that is captured in here, but the elegance and the refinement of the city and perhaps its more industrial past somehow comes through in here too. And maybe that's from the smoke, but we'll explore that more together. So, my winter whisky collection. I hope that there is something there that will appeal to each and every one of you. I think there are 5 great whiskies for this time of year, and during the next few days I'm going to be introducing my Chichester whisky women to them. So when you and I look at these 5 whiskies individually, I'll be able to tell you exactly what my whisky women thought of them as well. So, looking forward to seeing you again next time and talking whisky and food for winter. See you.